Oh, there it goes. We're live.
We good?
Yep.
All right. Good deal. Well, welcome everybody to, unfortunately, a little bit of a late start to the night for our 13th race of the 57th season of the RTG Talladega Challenge. As you were posted there in the comments, we were having some technical issues, but we missed a third of the race. We're here, though, to find out who's going to get that first spot into the final four for the championship here in the second elimination round. Seth Cole alongside of Michael Norman. And Michael, obviously, you've been keeping folks informed of what's been going on here so far in this race. So far, from what I understand, we've been able to keep things relatively clean and green up to this point.
Well, not really. We had one yellow flag early on for a spin from Tim Knopfsker, who has taking his car behind the wall. He was going to be a start and park here, has some family in town, and some prior commitments there. So he was able to start to at least get some type of points for this race, and also to follow up to know that Grant Wesley not in this race will have to be race his way in next week when we get down to it here. And we all know how he is in those types of situations here. But, a very small field night, Seth, with just about 25 cars out there. So, yeah, we've had one caution for a single car incident. But other than that, yeah, we've been pretty clean and green flag racing here. 3 wide, 2 wide, single file. And right now, up at the front, Joe DeSpirito holding on to that lead.
DeSpirito, the leader. Chuck McClure right behind him in second. Of course, we had that week off for Thanksgiving. Hope everybody had a very happy Thanksgiving with friends and family. And now these drivers back at it. Of course, 2 weeks ago was our first elimination race where we whittled down the playoff grid from 11 to 8. McClure and DeSpirito, two of the drivers that moved on, along with the aforementioned Grant Wesley, Tim Knopfsker, also Rodney Sullins, Jeremy Jeffries, Bob Seminara, and Brian Schilling. But to your point, with Tim Knopfsker starting parking here tonight, Grant Wesley not in the field, though he has a good reason, a little bit envious. He's currently right now in St. Louis for the Castro Gateway National Dirt Series that's going on there. Watched a little bit of that today on Flow Racing, and man, I envy him because I love short track racing on dirt. But
Battle for the lead up here.
But we heard from him a couple of weeks ago he wasn't going to be here tonight and knew that he'd be going into next week pretty much in a must-win situation to defend his championship. Same could be said maybe for Tim Knopfsker as well with the starting park. Grant and Tim came into this race second and third in the reformatted playoff points.
Yeah, absolutely. And also got word that we are probably between, I think he said 5 to 10 laps away from the next round of pit stops. Look, it's something to keep an eye out as we have a side-to-side battle for the race lead.
Rodney Sullins, big push there on the top side, courtesy of the 22 of Greg Palmer.
Ooh, that was very close between DeSpirito and the 38 right there going into that corner.
Not certain if it's happening on your end, if the trucks are doing a little bit of a side shimmy.
Not on my end.
Not on your end. All right. So, yeah, for those that don't know, our technical problems was our main broadcasting software computer decided that it didn't want to work, so we're currently running off of my personal PC, so apparently we are very quickly establishing that the internet connection on my PC is nowhere near as good as our broadcasting computer, but wanted to at least be able to bring you guys something here to give you a general idea of at least the storylines heading into next week, which should be a doozy of an elimination race. I can't recall in the past seasons we've done here for the RTG Tally Challenge as many kind of last moment storylines that could be happening in the final elimination race is what we've got cooking already here, not even halfway through this race.
Yeah, and it's going to be interesting to watch here. Do you think this week's exciting? Next week's going to be even better to watch. All these cars try to get the last minute win to try to get into that final four.
Of course, as well, here tonight, winning your in situation for the now 6 remaining playoff drivers that are on track, and if any one of them go to victory lane, they go into next week worry-free. They know they're going to be one of the 4 drivers to compete for the championship, so do not be surprised if you see drivers like the 38, the 24, the 17, who are right now on that inside line trying to stay at the front of the field, if they get really aggressive to try and pick up a victory here tonight, regardless of who's running in the lead.
Yeah, absolutely. And speaking of the lead, here comes Greg Palmer to the outside, trying to get that push by Kelly Causey. And once again, getting informed that we're roughly between 3 to 4 laps away from pit stops.
Yeah, and to your point, yeah, the drivers that are playoff contenders, they want that automatic golden ticket into the finale in the Final Four, but there were another,
20 cars.
17 drivers, yeah, 17, 18 drivers that took the green flag here tonight that were not competing for the championship, are not in the playoffs, and they still want a checkered flag as Palmer cleared the 38 of Rodney Sullins, tucks down in front after the assist from Kelly Causey and Ken Roberts on that top side, and Chuck McClure in the 17 ducking onto pit lane.
4 cars right here: Paglia, Tom Dixon, Brian Schilling, and Chuck McClure, the first to come down the pit road.
Only 4 trucks right there. We've seen Schilling and Paglia and McClure work together in the past, but not nearly the numbers that they normally have. Some of the others that they would have had in that group would have been Nofsker and Wesley, so fewer numbers coming to pit road for their group this evening.
Oh, but there's a lot more coming this, and those radios lighting up, letting us know there's going to be a lot of cars coming to pit road this time.
Nearing halfway and getting ready for, I believe it will be our first round of green flag pit stops here tonight. Palmer.
And here comes here comes.
Oh, Seminara gets into Wiley Coate. And now Bernie Mobbs gets into John Godfrey at the entrance of pit road. Bob Dixon's in the grass. The caution flag is out.
Caution did come out before some of these trucks made it down pit road. I believe if you were to go straight through, you would not get a penalty.
Correct.
So we'll see what happens.
You cannot take service. If you take service, you're more than likely going to get an end of the longest line penalty. You saw Ken Roberts right there. He was about to pull into his pit stall in the 55, thought better of it. I mean, obviously, you don't get that 30-second penalty, but the timing of that caution, you're going to be losing track position to the drivers that were just on pit road and were able to take service, because there's no doubt they're going to stay out.
That's very true, but also with the fact that it was only, I believe, 4 trucks that pit, it's not going to be too much ground lost.
Now this starts, I
lucky
believe,
for
with
this time,
I think the caution came out for the contact between the 712 and the 6. We'll also look at the incident on pit road, but the 712 and the 6, Seminara and Wiley Coate, that was on the racing surface, which is why the caution was thrown.
Yeah, it came right back up on the racing surface.
Oh, Jeff Crivello just got clipped in the left rear quarter panel. Takes a very long slide through the tri-oval. Did he hit anything? No, he did not. Oh, back up the track towards the outside wall. Saves it. So not a whole lot of contact exchanged there between the 3 trucks that brought the caution out. There was quite a bit of contact that was exchanged on pit lane, though, and it started with the 711 of John Godfrey. Let's take a look at what happened to him. Looks like Bernie Mobbs, when he was getting on the brakes, truck snapped loose on him. Donnie Garrett, Bob Dixon, and Ken Roberts all got little bits of that incident. So the caution out for the, what would this be, the second time today? I believe it would be the second time. Our ticker, obviously, with the late start and everything, is not completely up to date. As looks like the 6 of Wiley Coate is staying out to lead a lap here. May have accepted responsibility for the incident. It was kind of hard to tell exactly all of what happened there. I'm not sure if the 6 was staying out when the 712 was pitting, or if the 6 was trying to take a wider entry into pit road and make contact with the 712, but Obviously very tight there. And the subsequent contact led to the spin and the wreck, bringing out the yellow flag. So we will get back green in the second half of this race. I believe that our ticker has got the laps led total correct. Joe DeSpirito so far has led the most laps here tonight, 15 in total. 8 laps led for Chuck McClure, 3 for Rodney Sullins. 2 laps have been led by Greg Palmer, and then 1 lap apiece for Glenn Harris, Brian Schilling, and your current race leader, Wiley Coate, who I believe might be out of fuel, or... yeah, looks like he's getting an assist from Josh Metallic to get to pit lane. So he was really close on the numbers of not being able to make it back around to his pit stall. And that will eventually turn the lead over to Tom Dixon in the 45. The 3 drivers that pitted along with him, Chuck McClure, Mark Paglia, and... what was the other one? Brian Schilling, they all came back down pit road with the race leaders. So they will not start up at the front like Tom Dixon. Dixon will be the leader. Josh Metallic will be second. Glenn Harris third. Bob Seminara fourth. Chuck McClure looks like he'll restart in fifth. Brian Schilling sixth. Seventh, Mark Paglia. Greg Palmer eighth. Jeremy Jeffries in ninth. And Cy Jones is slated to complete the top 10. Nobody was off the lead lap at the time of that yellow of the drivers that are still running. All 25 drivers still on the lead lap, so there will be subsequently no lucky dogs, no free passes under this caution. Take the opportunity here. We gave you the drivers and who were in the playoffs, this next round of the playoffs. Let's give you what the intervals looked like, because remember, the then 11 playoff contenders back in round 1, if they moved on to round 2, the bonus points that they accumulated, whether it was for a race win or where they finished in the round 1 standings, they then carried over here into round 2. So the way things reformatted, Chuck McClure came in as the number 1 seed, 2 points in hand over Grant Wesley, 8 points over Tim Nofsker in third. Rodney Sullins was 10 points back in fourth. Jeremy Jeffries, Joe DeSpirito, Bob Seminara were in a 3-way tie for fifth, 14 points out. And Brian Schilling was 20 points back in the 8th position. As Bob Seminara, you saw there, exit stage left to pit road, top off the fuel tank. He would have been restarting in 4th place, but gives up a top 5 restarting spot to maybe make it a little bit further on fuel. Chuck McClure thought about following him down pit road, but then yanked the wheel back to the right. So he will inherit that 4th place starting spot, as we should have the lights out atop the pace truck this time, and indeed we do. So these drivers will get themselves doubled up and get ready to go back green on lap 35. Out of curiosity, who were those drivers that topped off? Bob Dixon, Bob Seminara, Robbie Nisus, Ken Roberts, Doug Hewlick, Bobby Farrell, Bob Sire, and Donnie Garrett. All coming down and topping off the fuel tank, as well as the 6 of Wiley Coate. No driver can make it the rest of the way on fuel. They will all have to be on pit lane at least one more time. When we go back green, if we remain under green flag conditions, that would be somewhere in the vicinity of laps 53 to 55. Those drivers that topped off might be able to make it as far as lap 56, but everybody is going to be at least 10 laps shy of making it to the finish on what they've got currently in the tank. Well, hopefully all of our technical gremlins will be taken care of by next week. Next week we continue on the 57th season of the RTG Tally Challenge. And these drivers will be taking to Talladega for the 4th playoff race on the season, elimination race number 2, and the race that will determine the final 4 to battle for the championship. Well, maybe not even the final 4, maybe the final 5, because I look at Josh Metallic restarting on the top side here in the 39. There was a point where there was actually a tie for the 4th and final spot points-wise to get into the season finale's championship battle. And so 2 drivers ended up transferring in instead of just the 1. And we had 5 drivers that battled for the championship. Josh Metallic would go on to win that championship a couple of seasons ago. But it's the Batmobile of Tom Dixon that's going to lead us down here to the green. And we are back underway, as having a little bit of a problem there, shifting from first to second gear, was Tom Dixon. Has stacked up the whole inside line. Josh Metallic and Chuck McClure, they were on it and ready to go. Metallic's going to get clear for the lead. McClure looking to get clear for second. Should have a decent run if he gets a big push from Mark Paglia here down the back straightaway, and he nearly got doored by the 45 of Tom Dixon off of turn 2. Into 3, top 3 get themselves cleared on that top side. Metallic, McClure, and Paglia. Jeremy Jeffries in the 8. 4th truck on that outside line, trying to get himself clear of Tom Dixon. He's bringing along the 24 of Joe DeSpirito, the 38 of Rodney Sullins.
Talk about how big time that outside lane is and the runs that it gets, and you can see it right here.
Right now, out of our top 10, we only have 2 of our playoff contenders up here. That would be the 17, actually, I'm sorry, 3 of our championship contenders. That'd be the 17, the 24, and the 38. Ryan Schilling right now back around the 12th position. Bob Seminara all the way back in 24th. But that's obviously, as mentioned, subsequent of him coming down pit road at 1 to green to top off the fuel tank. And I noticed he was actually up on the top side there, drafting off the back of the 6 of Wiley Coat. It doesn't look like at this point in time Seminara has any thoughts of fighting his way up to the front. Might kind of be in ride mode, trying to save every bit of fuel that he can.
Yeah, it's very much possible. You know, plus on top of with the whole incident coming to pit road thing, I think he kind of just wants to be extra careful as well.
So we know how Grant Wesley and Tim Nofsker are. We've seen it in the past when their back is up against the wall in must-win type situations. I mean, we've seen how aggressive they are when their backs aren't up against the wall. So the drivers here tonight, they're going to gain a pretty good chunk of points on Wesley, obviously, with not making the start. Nofsker with the start in park if they get a good finish. But if you haven't won your way into the finale, even if you're sitting 2nd, 3rd, 4th in the point standings, looking like you're going to move on, knowing that those 2 drivers are going to be in the field next week and they're going to try and run all the laps, you're not necessarily safe.
No, not at all. You know, points can be gained and lost a lot, especially with a field full of 20, you know, like of 26 plus cars, especially if we get more. So every point is crucial in terms of getting into this Final Four.
That's a great point, because beginning of the season, even towards the midway portion of the season, we were seeing anywhere from 35 to 40 cars in the field. Now, last couple of weeks, the field has tapered off just a little bit. That tends to happen in series. Drivers not in the hunt for the championship, they'll run somewhere else where they're maybe contending for the points leader for a championship, but then they come back at the beginning of the new season. But with that being said, that's a good chunk of points that are taken off of the table. What was an opportunity to gain 30 to 40 points in a race, now it's kind of been cut down to 25 to 30 points to be able to gain in a race. So to your point, every position, every point is even more important at this point in time, with a chance to move on to the Final Four in the playoffs on the line.
Exactly.
Now, I mentioned the fact that these drivers, they'll be having to come to pit road somewhere around 53 to 56. But there is the chance that we could end up having this thing go green to the end, and we could have some drivers maybe come to pit road when the fuel window opens to make it the rest of the way. That would be roughly somewhere in the next 7 to 8 laps. We've not really seen many drivers adopt that strategy, though, so I don't know if you would do it here tonight. It'd be interesting to see, though, if any of like the non-playoff drivers would ever try and adopt that strategy. You know, maybe leave the playoff drivers out there all by their lonesome. I don't know if that would be a strategy drivers would try here to maybe experiment with near the end of the season, especially if there's nothing to lose as far as the playoffs are concerned or a championship. Maybe nab yourself a victory before the end of the season.
And I mean, it takes a lot of, a lot of teammates try to get yourself up there, Seth. And, me and you both, we've run our fair share of play checks, so we know how much having somebody behind you to push is important. So, but when you get into a situation when you're, single file like this, I think even DW in real life said it best. Like,
Caution!
I hear a spinner is a wreck in the back.
Yellow flag is out.
Bobby Farrell.
It's going to be the Ronald McDonald House Ford F-Series. It's like a solo truck
was a bumper
spin.
grab. It was a it wasn't solo. The 31 was involved, and I believe Bobby Farrell was involved as well. This was a stack up right here, going off into the corner. Someone drifted up. They got out of the gas. I believe it was Bernie Mobbs, didn't really get out of the gas in enough time, and got into the back of Bobby Farrell, and chaos ensued afterwards.
Yeah, you could see that damage on the rear bumper of the 31 of Bernie Mobbs, the leaf filter Dodge. Here's a look at it. Going into turn 3. Really started up about 4 trucks ahead. It was Doug Hewlick, I believe, got out of shape. Not sure if he bumper grabbed off of the front bumper of Ken Roberts and maybe off the back bumper of the truck that was in front of him. And then it just chain reacted that check up all the way back there through the rest of the field, the rest of that lead pack going into turn 3.
Sometimes all it takes is just one misjudgment.
And that's the dangers of the single file racing too. Everybody wants the same line. Well, that was a pretty good shot there that Bob Sire, the 027, who's making his first start on the season, I do believe, took into the outside wall. Mobbs was able to drive away. Take an onboard here with the 31 of Bernie Mobbs and just show you how there's really not very much reaction time when they're stacking up and slowing up in front of you. Gets that outside retaining wall. Interesting there that after he was into the wall, 31 of Bernie Mobbs downshifted. Sounded like he downshifted to second gear to try and get off of that safer barrier. It's a little risky there. You don't want to money shift and blow second gear, especially because that's a restart gear that you're going to need to be able to get yourself up to speed with the rest of the field. But these guys have obviously they've learned. They've been in these scenarios. They know what they're capable of doing, what's going to cause a mechanical problem and what isn't. So might be something I might squirrel away later on if I end up finding myself in the outside wall at Talladega.
I know, right? Well, we talked about the pit stops here with this 23 to go at the line set, and that's just outside the fuel window.
I'm expecting we're going to see quite a number of drivers dive onto pit lane here this lap. I don't know if we're coming to 1 to green or not. Again, there were no drivers off the lead lap this time, so...
If we see a lot of them come down pit road, then we'll know what's coming to the 1 to green.
Yeah, quite possibly. Again, no drivers off the lead lap here. so we would not have that extra lap of pacing. And subsequently, no lucky dogs. And Robbie Nice is staying out there in the 54, so we might have another lap of pacing here.
Oh, here comes a couple cars.
That was Coates, Cy Jones, and Bob Sire, giving up first, second, and fourth. We'll see if the lights go out. I think we're going to get one more lap of pacing here at least.
Yep, one more lap of pacing.
Yep, lights still on atop the pace truck.
That's why I just heard someone spinning in the back. That was probably just off pit road stopping.
Could maybe have possibly been somebody spinning the tires trying to refire the engine after throwing in the clutch.
True, that's true.
We told you about Tim Nofsker with his start and park situation. Up until this point, he was the only driver back in the garage area, but now Bernie Mobbs
Yep.
has just gone behind the wall. It didn't look visibly like he took that much of a shot into the outside wall, but then again, sometimes the driver knows if that thing's going to be up to speed in the draft or not, so Bernie Mobbs, unfortunately, his evening is done. He'll get credited for the 25th position here this evening. We talk about it all the time, Michael, especially in a series like this, where you have a limited number of drivers that are competing for the championship, and you have anywhere from 2/3 to 3/4 of the field that are not battling for the championship, that just want to win. Super Speedway racing, people look at it as an opportunity, a level playing field where anybody in the right moment, the right situation can pick up a checkered flag. With the fact that this is the first race of the round of 8, say you're a non-playoff driver and you've got a playoff contender in front of you that you're trying to pass or behind you that you're trying to block. How aggressive are you going to be to keep that driver at bay? Because, yeah, you obviously want to treat that playoff contender with respect, knowing the situation they're in, but at the same
Here
time,
comes
I
everybody
mean,
down pit road.
yeah, 'cause I noticed that, like, mass migration. But I mean, at the same time, say you haven't had a win in a couple of seasons, you know, you want to do everything in your power to be the first one back to the checkered flag. Do you have to kind of put it out of your mind that that driver is a playoff contender? You just got to treat them as
yes,
a fellow racer, a fellow competitor?
Yes, you do. Honestly, it's every man for himself. Like you said, if people were out here not worrying about the playoff drivers and giving them room, then why were they even out here in the first place? You're out here to win. So you do it just as you would any other race at any other time.
And it's interesting, too, because, you know, as I've stated, I've raced with these drivers before, and one thing that I've noticed in this type of racing is you cannot race scared, you cannot race conservatively, because if you do, more often than not, that's when you're prone to make mistakes. It's really, really weird, the mentality of super speedway racing. The more aggressive you are, usually the more stable you are. I don't know how that makes sense, but I've experienced it firsthand, and it actually works. So, yeah, try and figure that one out at home.
Absolutely.
Should appear on, remember that series, History's Mysteries? That's what it should appear on.
Right.
You hear the engines cutting out for Chuck McClure, Joe DeSpirito and company, realizing the situation, how close it could be on fuel if we go green the rest of the way. They're going to be the front row. Greg Palmer, 3rd. Kelly Causey in 4th. John Godfrey, 5th. Doug Hulick in 6th. Bob Dixon, Tom Dixon, Bob Seminara, and Cy Jones. That's going to be the top 10 when we go back green. The drivers that came down and topped off the fuel tank there, coming to 1 to green. Metallic, Sullen, Shelton, Schilling, Garrett, Jeffries, Crivello, Harris, Bobby Farrell, Robbie Nice's, Ken Roberts, and Bob Sire. Could that be the call that wins the race, or do the drivers up front, do they, with what they were able to save under pacing, do they have enough to make it the rest of the way. Going to make things really interesting to see who wants to be at the front, consuming the most fuel, creating the draft for everyone as we get back underway with officially 21 laps to go.
And that is pushing it. So if we go green the rest of this race, I'm interested to see who's going to have enough to make it to the end.
Yeah, it's very rare that we end up seeing drivers even go that 21 laps on a run. Normally we have a big group that comes down 19 laps in, and then a second big group that comes down.
I believe that's Wiley Coat that's having a little bit of issue.
Yeah, that's scary. But normally, like the bigger packs, we don't see them
go
really any further than lap 20 on a run. Is Wiley Coat doing the boot, scoot, and boogie right in front of Josh Metallic, and looks like he might be...
They probably said, get the F out of my way.
Yeah, he's going down to the apron. He's going to drop to the back.
Oh, yeah. And, unfortunately, it's a tough situation all the way around because, you just want to be in it, but something out of your control is plaguing you from being able to be a part of that.
I heard Josh Metallic, who had a really good restart there, was trying to fight his way up on the inside line. Obviously had to lift. Not sure where that 6 was going to reappear, and you see there on the right side of your screen, looks like Wiley Coat is going to lose the draft as a result of that connection issue. Spirito's led the most laps so far here tonight, 17 in total, about to come around and complete lap 18 out in front. And there's the non-playoff drivers, Greg Palmer, John Godfrey, Kelly Causey, and Doug Hewlick. I believe that Greg Palmer has yet to win a race here in the RTG Tally Challenge. I don't know exactly if Hewlick has won or not. I do know Godfrey has won a super speedway race, and I do know that Kelly Causey has won a super speedway race. Causey's took place last season. John Godfrey's, if I remember correctly, his was back, I want to say it was season 54, but I might be wrong. Nonetheless, a bit of a winless streak for the 7-Eleven. And then behind them, you've got the 7-12 of Bob Seminara. This has been a rather uncharacteristic season for Bob Seminara. He's not been in victory lane yet. Very rare that we don't see him have at least one win a season. He also comes into this race based off of the tiebreaker of that three-way tie for 5th. He is technically the 7th seed of the 8 drivers. It's been not mediocre, but certainly under the radar, not as much in-your-face consistency season for the 7-12.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah,
same could be said for Despirito, though, too. I know Despirito had the win earlier on this year, but, I mean, he hasn't exactly been a driver that we've seen consistently up at the front as well. And it was interesting because I remember when we had a post-race interview with Bob Seminari, he said, back a few seasons ago, we Florida boys, nobody could get to us. Once we got hooked up, nobody was able to pass us. They've all figured it out. They've all made alliances, and they've been able to keep us at bay. We got to figure out something to be able to get back to the front and stay at the front because they've read our playbook, and they're beating us at our own game.
Yeah. Sometimes you've got to switch it up, things don't always work out forever.
Coming around this time, it will be 16 laps to go. Noticed our buddy James Qualls in the chat, tunes in weekly to our RTG Super Speedway Series broadcast. Want to wish him a happy birthday here today.
Absolutely. Happy birthday, James. So Despirito hanging on to the outside. I feel like Greg Palmer, depending on if he has enough field to make it, could be a real big spoiler.
Yeah, this is bad if you're the 24, right? There's no way you're going to be able to make it the rest of the way if we stay green with being out in front, because he stayed out when all the rest of the field came down at that 1 to green. So if they were borderline, then he is certainly much more borderline, and being out in front, he's consuming more fuel, so there's absolutely no way, in my mind, that the 24 can make it the rest of the way.
I mean, look at this top 5. You know, you got Despirito leading, uh, you got Palmer in second, you've got John Gilbert Godfrey in third, Kelly Causey in fourth. You know, then look at that, Doug Hewlick battling for the 5th position here. You know, some of these names you don't really see a lot at the front, you know, aside from every occasion, and here they are trying to get up front when it counts the most.
Keeping an eye towards the back of the pack, it looks like a few drivers have lost touch with the lead group. I believe a couple of them were the ones that were involved in the last caution. Bobby Farrell in the 92 and Bob Sire in the 027. Yeah, Bob's actually fallen way, way off from this lead pack now. Farrell's trying to stay in touch, but it's difficult with this setup. If you are that last truck in line, even if you're up to speed, if you don't have a drafting partner behind you, unless they're 3 wide ahead of you, it's very difficult to stay in touch with the tail end of the pack. It's even more difficult when they get single filed out.
Absolutely, and not only that, but being the last car in this draft with no one behind you, I feel like you're using just the same amount of fuel as the leader is just to try to stay up in the pack.
It's a good call. Well, one driver that's kind of laid low is the 4 of Brian Schilling. We saw him come to pit road with Mark Paglia and Chuck McClure at the beginning of what was going to be our first round of green flag pit stops. He's right now kind of riding back in the 16th position, just kind of hanging out here for the moment, which makes me wonder if he could be one of those drivers that we would see have the strategy of make it the rest of the way without coming to pit road. Remember back last season, the season opener, Chuck McClure and Brian Schilling ran out of fuel off turn 4 coming to the checkered flag. They were able to make it on fumes. So Schilling's been in this situation before, knowing just how much fuel he's got to have to make it the distance.
Yep, and we'll have to wait and see if he's got enough.
It's like Farrell,
I don't know, man. I'm on the edge of the seat here.
I think Farrell's caught back to the lead group. I think he's good.
At the 27, right? 027?
No, 92.
Okay. Because I say the 027, I think, was coming down pit road this lap.
Yeah, Wiley Code actually made an unscheduled stop as well under this run just a few laps ago.
Well, if you think about it, we know, best case scenario for them, they don't get lapped and a caution comes out.
Oh, Cote has gone a lap down, but I mean, we haven't had any lap machines for the last 2 cautions at least. So yeah, if you can at least be one of the 2 drivers that are a lap down if a caution comes out, you get the free pass.
But it's not just that. It's, you know, you pit now, you don't go a lap down, a caution comes out, everybody else pits, and you don't. Then all of a sudden, bam, you're in the lead.
Interesting scenario. Looks like Bob Sire, his debut this season, not going to go the way he planned. He did come down pit road, but he actually just made the left-hand turn into the infield. So Bob Sire will finish 24th place here tonight. 10 to go this next time by at the start-finish line. There's no way you can save fuel if you're the race leader. There's no way you can throw in the clutch without getting run over. Despirito at this point is committed.
There was one race where the leader did win, but it wasn't in RTG. It was in another league at Talladega, where on the last couple laps, everyone was running like 100 miles an hour. If you remember,
I do. I don't think they're going to do that here.
No, but that would definitely be a sight to see if that's what happened.
Little surprised here, Joe Despirito. If he is in the perilous position that I'm projecting he is, a little surprised he hasn't tried swapping spots with the 22, try and tuck in line rather than be out in front here. I mean,
you can't exactly do that.
Well,
you know,
it's true.
Unless you're far enough ahead, you move out of line, you're going to get freight trained.
I mean, he's basically right now just banking on a caution. That would be my assumption. Either that or maybe just maybe, I don't know if it's possible because I don't know what the fuel numbers are right now specifically for the 24. But let's say we have a caution come out around the point of no return. He might be able to shut the engine off long enough under pacing to make it around to the checkered flag. That might be a possibility, but outside of a caution flying between now and the checkers, I just don't see any plausible scenario where he's not going to have to dive onto pit lane.
Nope, we're going to have to wait and see. Maybe it's a strategy. All these cars might come down, and it might be a whole different scenario.
Again, remember what's at stake here for the remaining playoff drivers on track. If you win tonight, you'll go into next week knowing that you have locked in your spot in the Final Four in 2 weeks' time to compete for the championship. Joe DeSpirito, a multi-time champion here in the Tally Challenge, and trying to add to his illustrious resume. He is right now the only playoff contender up inside of the top 5. As soon as I say that, Bob Seminara is going to jump to the inside of Doug Kulik for that 5th position, trying to pick up that inside line of Mark Paglia and Chuck McClure, who kind of stalled out there. They were making a little bit of headway, but Paglia pushed up through 3 and 4, lost some momentum. Now he's going to get to the back bumper of the 712.
We'll see if it's coming as they're approaching their first lap car.
This says to me 712 might be good to make it. That's why he stepped out of line. Feels that leading that inside line, being out in clean air with no truck to draft off of, that he is good to make it the rest of the way to the checkered flag, so he's taking the shorter way around the racetrack.
7 to go.
You pointed out the drivers up there in the top 5, non-playoff contenders. Look at some of these other ones we've got here. Donnie Garrett in the 77, who due to connection problems just missed out on making the playoffs this season. Mark Paglia, who was in the playoffs but got eliminated in our elimination race 2 weeks ago. He's up here looking for his 2nd win on the season. Bob Dixon, that 143, that Richard Petty Dodge Ram. He's up here in the thick of it, along with Ken Roberts in the 55. Been a couple of seasons since Ken has been to victory lane here in the Tally Challenge. A lot of drivers looking for their first win of season 57, not battling for the championship.
Passing another lap truck here.
It's 45 Tom Dixon.
These guys are moving towards the bottom.
They are.
Maybe it might just be time.
Doug Kulik is now on that outside line with Rodney Sullins and Donnie Garrett. Let's see if that 3-truck train can make any headway. Looks like they are. Kulik's alongside of Godfrey for 3rd. If he gets alongside the 22, does DeSpirito go back up to the top, or does he stay committed to that yellow line?
Well, 5 laps to go, Seth. I would assume that now is the time where it would be point of no return because
it would be
lap trucks.
Yep, you're right. Because we ended up having those trucks get lapped under green, that would add the extra lap onto pacing. So we'll give the usual disclaimer that we will stay with the leaders if trouble breaks out. We will go back and we will review what ended the race under caution, either post-race or during the pacing laps coming to the checkers, but we will stay with this battle at the front, because at this point on, it's race back pretty much proverbially to the checkered flag if the yellow flies, and that was the 28 of Mark Paglia who dove onto pit lane.
As well as the 17 as well.
Chuck McClure in the 17, they could not make it on fuel, and I don't remember about Paglia, but I know Chuck McClure stayed out that extra lap, did not pit at 1 to green under that last caution. I'm seeing some more radios light up. I think 24 might be coming to pit road this time.
All right, let's see. 24 is coming to pit road this time, as well as the 22 and the 92.
That's going to give the lead to the 23 of Doug Kulik. That moves Rodney Sullins into 2nd. Oh, spinner!
What?
No caution! I watched the caution lights. No caution!
He's still on. They're still on the grass. They are still on the grass.
Donnie Garrett is spinning around in the infield. Pace truck stays stationary. Oh, that's tight there going into one between Nisus, Schilling, and Metallic. That was very nearly the caution. We stay green as Hewlick leads, Sullins in second. Kelly Causey is now in third. Shelton to fourth. Jeremy Jeffries is in fifth. The landscape of the top five has completely changed. But now the question is, can these drivers make it on fuel? Because remember, they pitted at 1 to green, so they've only got maybe 1.5 laps left. Here come a bunch more to pit road. Who stayed out? 54 of Robbie Nisus as Jeffries gets into Shelton. Metallic missed pit road. Roberts is facing the wrong way on pit lane entry. Still green. The 54 is the race leader. And now he might be out of fuel.
He could coast if he wanted to, right behind the 45. I think that might be what he's doing.
Trying to see if he can tuck in behind the 7 of Cy Jones and the 45 of Tom Dixon. I'm watching the telemetry.
Yeah, he's underpowered.
Oh, no, he's out. He's out. That thing is rapidly losing speed.
Yep, now he's out.
He is completely out of fuel. Metallic may run out of fuel because he missed pit lane. Here comes Donnie Garrett off of pit road. There's Hewlick. There's Sullins. Who the heck's going to win this? I don't even know who's the leader right now. It's the 54, I think.
Metallic's
but who's it going to be when they come around here to take the white flag?
Metallic is out of gas.
As is the 54. Is it Donnie Garrett in the 77? Or did he miss his pit stall when he spun through the grass? I don't know if he took service or not. He's staying out, so he must have taken service. We're waiting for telemetry to show us if he crosses the line in the lead or not. If it's not him, it would probably be the 23 of Hewlick. Ticker says Donnie Garrett is 21st, tail end of the lead lap. So this is the battle for the lead here. Hewlick, Sullins, Brian Schilling, Bob Dixon, Jeremy Jeffries, and Greg Palmer.
And they're on the white flag.
They are indeed. They did take the white flag that last time by. Schilling and Dixon on the top. The Dodge is working against the Chevrolets on the bottom of Hewlick and Sullins. Actually, correction, a Toyota and a Chevrolet. Hewlick is a Tundra. And he's edged ahead here off of turn 4. Does Sullins try and go for it? He jumps to the top. Jeffries jumps to the inside. 3 wide coming to the stripe. Hewlick might be out. Hewlick, I don't know what's going on with the 23. And Jeremy Jeffries is going to win.
Wow.
What just happened?
I have no idea.
Holy
cow.
Out.
Oh, no, but I lied.
What an absolutely crazy finish to this race. Even our telemetry wasn't sure what was going on. It was taking ages to update who was running where. But Jeremy Jeffries is going to be the winner of this race. Jeffries, who came into tonight in the 5th seed. And we now know at least one of the drivers that is going to compete for the championship in 2 weeks' time. He can put his proverbial feet up next week.
Is it very much possible that Hewlick may not have put enough gas in his car?
Might not have. Because it certainly looked like he ran out coming to the line. Still trying to process everything that just went down. So our telemetry shows Jeffries wins 17 one-thousandths of a second over Rodney Sullins. Brian Schilling brings it home in 3rd. Greg Palmer in 4th and Chuck McClure in 5th. Remember when we only had one playoff contender running inside the top 5 there with around 10 to go? Yeah, 4 of the top 5 were playoff contenders at the end of this race. That's why these drivers are playoff contenders. Here's the rest of the finishing results. We'll go back and look at a replay of that finish in just a moment. Pegley in 6th. Doug Hewlick coasted across the start-finish line in 7th. John Godfrey in 8th. Bobby Farrell, I thought for a moment that he was a lap machine, but he actually was on the lead lap in the hunt for that victory. He gets 9th. Jeff Crivello is going to finish out the evening in the 10th position. Kelly Causey, Glenn Harris, Bob Seminara, Joe DeSpirito, and Cy Jones were the top 15. Seminara and DeSpirito, who were up in the top 5, top 6 when those pit stops began in the closing stages, they're going to finish outside of the top 10. Tom Dixon, Ken Roberts, Robbie Nisus, Josh Metallic, and Donnie Garrett were the rest of the top 20. Garrett had that spin through the infield grass. Robbie Nisus, Josh Metallic ran out of fuel, had to coast back to their pit stalls. Bob Dixon finishes in 21st. Not sure what happened to Dixon because he was pushing the 4 of Brian Schilling down the back straightaway there on the white flag lap. Unless he was a lap down at the time. I thought he was on the lead lap, but he might have been a lap machine. Wiley Coate, the last car to finish in 22nd, and we saw Shelton involved in that stack up with Ken Roberts and Jeremy Jeffries, the entrance of pit lane. She did not make it to the conclusion of the race. Neither did Bob Sire, Bernie Mobbs, and you don't see it on the finishing results here, but 26th would be the 088 of Tim Nofsker. So let's go back. Let's see if we can take a little bit more in-depth look of that finish. See if we can pinpoint all of what went down. We'll take it here off of turn 4. So at this time, yeah, the 143 of Bob Dixon is a lap machine. I thought he was on the lead lap at the time. Trying to help fellow Dodge Ram driver Brian Schilling. There you see the swing to the outside by Rodney Sullins. I think maybe at that point, the 23 was saying, I'm out of fuel. And that's why we saw Jeremy Jeffries jump to the inside. He had Greg Palmer to help him. I almost wonder if the 38 might have been running out of fuel as well. Because I would have thought with him making the move first, he would have had the momentum. He had the push from Brian Schilling. Jeremy Jeffries kind of made that pass on the inside by himself, but it seemed like he had more momentum than the 38 did going through the trioval. Let's take a look from the aerial view. You can see right there. Jeremy Jeffries, he's going 194. I think Rodney Sullins was going about 192. Yeah, Brian Schilling even was able to get a run to make a move to the inside of the 38. I think Rodney Sullins might have been sputtering coming to the line as well.
The guy's not taking enough fuel.
Yeah,
to
might
get
have.
to the, to
Yeah,
get to
might
the
have
end.
gone with
A
just
splash.
a splash, the 38 and the 22, and that wasn't enough for either one of them. I mean, you can see right there after they're in 1 and 2, yeah, the 38 dropping back very quickly. So I think the 38 was sputtering because it would have stood to reason if he was up to full song that he would have had the momentum to at least, if not make it closer, actually edge Jeremy Jeffries at the start-finish line. Wow. What a race. And that was in the middle of the playoffs as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, let's see if we can talk with a few of our podium finishers here tonight. Playoff contenders all. And gonna see if we can, since we don't have our usual broadcasting software doing it, we are going to more than likely have to rely on one of the series admins to move the drivers up. So bear with us for just a second as we try and get things situated here to be able to talk with our top 3 finishers. While we're working on that, I mean, the storylines we've got now going into next week, Michael, we know that Grant Wesley is going to be more than likely in a must-win situation. Tim Nofsker going to be in a must-win situation. These are 2 drivers that ended up picking up victories during the playoffs last season, so we know that it is possible for either one of those drivers to get that last-minute trip to victory lane next week. Jeremy Jeffries, to my knowledge, has never won a Tally Challenge championship. If I remember correctly, he said that's one of the things on his bucket list, and now he's got a shot. He's one of the confirmed drivers that's going to be in said Final Four. We can have a maximum now of 3 drivers that make it in on points. Do you think that's going to be the case next week, or do you think we're going to see another of our now 7 remaining playoff drivers win their way into a playoff spot and leave 2 spots open for points?
Honestly, next week's gonna be wild. I fully believe that we're gonna see another one of our playoff drivers race their way in. I mean, we've seen them all in that type of situation before, so I feel like that's what's gonna happen tonight or next week. Not tonight, next week.
Going to see if we can get our third place finisher Brian Schilling here in a minute. Brian came into this race last, 8th of the playoff contenders, so this was a big night for him. And we'll see if we can dial him up here in just a moment.
User joined your
I believe
channel.
we do have him now. Brian, Michael, and Seth up here in the FRM booth. You got us?
Yeah, what's going on?
Well, man, I'll tell you what. I mean, you came into this race last of the playoff contenders, 20 points out. We knew a few of the playoff drivers weren't going to make tonight, weren't going to make the completion of the laps here tonight. How much emphasis did you put on yourself here this evening to have this good finish, setting yourself up for at least a feasible opportunity to, if not win, point your way into the Final Four next week?
Well, I knew points-wise, I know I'm not in a good
User
spot.
joined your channel.
However, I knew to do the best I could, get a good finish at least, because I knew, a few guys weren't here. If I get a good finish, it leaves the door open. Leaves the door open for next week. Get another good finish, I can still squeak my way in. Tried for the win, just didn't have the push I needed at the end. But hey, that's the way it goes. I'm just thankful to be here getting interviewed right now.
Yeah, it was a very crazy race out there today. Not a lot of cars around, so every point matters more in these races now with the lower car count. So what was going through your mind here at the end, especially with it coming down to fuel?
Well, part of me knew, as much as I needed a good finish, I also, being the last guy, I got nothing to lose, at this point. I can be a little aggressive on the call. I went in, topped off on the last yellow, and it's like, well, I'll see how the fuel mileage pans out. I'm taking a splash, worst case, and it worked out.
Now, was there any way we saw pretty much, I think, the furthest that any driver was able to make it and not have to coast back around, running out of fuel, having to come back to their pit stall, was around roughly 2 to go. Was there any scenario there on that last run to be able to save those extra 2 laps, or was it basically just maybe hoping you get to the front and a caution comes out for you to be able to save fuel under pacing?
Yeah, that was my other. I figured either I was going to run it dry, and stay out if I get a late yellow and I'm in the lead, great, or I'm still right up there. I can clutch it, save gas to the checkered flag, or second scenario, just take the splash. I would have had to do some really aggressive saving to get in the ballpark of taking a gamble on it, but I didn't feel like I was a little over 2 laps there, yet short, halfway into that run, so it just wasn't going to be feasible.
Well, Brian, we saw you go to victory lane in the regular season finale, so we know that if it comes down to a must-win situation, that you've definitely got the truck and the talent capable of doing so. It'll be interesting to see once the points are calculated where you stand heading into next week's final elimination race. But a job well done here tonight. Got some really good points with the top 3 podium finish. Before we let you go, we're going to turn the microphone over to you and let you do some thank you sponsors and shoutouts.
Yeah, thank you tonight, especially to Josh Metallic and Jeremy Jeffries. Seemed like I was with them, a good chunk of the race. Definitely couldn't get back up to the front a few times without their help. Shout out to Josh, Wiley, Tim for putting this on. week after week. Always fun to show up and see if I got what it takes. Thank you to Sean Prime. Thank you to David Cannon for looking over all this and making sure it runs great. And also thank you guys, and thank you everybody that comes out every week. This definitely is not able to be done without everybody being here.
That's Brian Schilling. He jumped from 8th, we now know, to 4th of the drivers in the playoff points heading into next week. So currently sitting in a Final Four position. We'll see if he can hang on to it in next week's final elimination race. Congratulations on the great run, Brian. Best of luck next week.
Thanks, guys.
And we'll see
User
if
left
we
your
can
channel.
now dial up the runner-up finisher, 38 of Rodney Sullins.
Channel switched. Channel switched. Channel switched. Channel
Would help
switched.
if I knew what I was doing
User
here.
was moved.
There
to
we
your
go.
channel.
Rodney, you got us up here in the FRM booth?
Hey guys, how's it going?
Oh, it's been a topsy-turvy night, I'll tell you what. But I mean, man, certainly looked like that 38 was on par here tonight. Almost pulled off the victory. Now, I have a question just based on
User
what
left
we
your
saw
channel.
visibly there coming to the start-finish line. We saw you make that move to the top side, and I thought with having the 4 behind you that push was going to have you out in front by the time you guys came to the checkers.
User
Did it
joined your
sputter or
channel.
something there? Is that why we saw that little bit of loss of momentum through the tri-oval?
Yes.
Oh,
Yes. I had under 2 pounds, I think somewhere along in there coming to the line. So yeah.
It was a very crazy night, and for it to come down the field just made it that little extra special. I mean, coming down pit road, with the aggressiveness that you drivers do, how difficult is it to not only get on the pit road but also adjust your strategy to take the no tires and then just the right amount of fuel right as you're coming down pit road.
Yeah, the second to last pit stop, I went back in and topped off because I knew it would put me really close to a splash. And I knew I would come out in the back, so I would be able to kind of draft for a while. And that's what I did. And it put me there. I mean, I was there at a splash. I mean, I almost made it. I mean, but and that was my plan. And I stuck with it, and it come up just a hair short. If at Daytona, I might have won with the start finish line in the middle of the tri-oval. Don't know.
well, Rodney, obviously looking ahead towards next week. We know that last year you were in the Final Four, almost won the championship then. With the finish here tonight of second place, you're up there in a tie right now for second in overall points, 7 points outside of the points lead. Looking like a pretty safe position right now, but of course, it's Talladega. Things can happen in a blink of an eye. What is the goal next week? Are we looking for just a good, consistent finish to point your way into that Final Four? I know you've been hungry for that victory, so if you're in the position, do you kind of throw caution to the wind and go for that? I mean, what do we see for the 38 here setting up to get a Final Four position for a second straight season?
Next week, I will be doing what I can to keep the truck straight, get the best finish I can, and if it looks like I can get the W without putting my truck or anybody else's truck in a bad situation, I'm going to go for it. I want to get a win. I need to get a win, so I can get that monkey off my back for this season, and actually last season too. I know I got one last season gave to me, but I want to win one. Thought I had it tonight. I want the checkered flag, but next week, if it's there, I'm gonna try to grab it. If it's not there, I'll just get the best I can.
Well, next week should certainly be very interesting, very exciting. Lots of different storylines heading into that final elimination race to finally determine the Final Four. Congratulations on the great run here tonight. Good start to your round of 8. Before we let you go, the floor is yours for some thank you sponsors and shoutouts.
Well, as usual, let's thank FRN, Seth. You and Michael do a great job. I'm so looking forward to watching this back. Thank Rolling Thunder Gaming, Dave Cannon, Sean Prime, the owners, Josh, Wiley, Tim. They do a great job putting this show on. All the other admins, and of course, all the drivers that make this happen. This is just the best time of my life. I've really enjoyed this. getting back into racing. But I want to thank Black Rifle Red Hots, my BSR teammates, my XFM teammates. And again, thank you guys. Can't wait to watch it.
That's Rodney Sullins. He starts off the second round of the playoffs with a second place finish here tonight. He's up there in the points. He'll look to preserve that spot in the Final Four in next week's elimination race. Best of luck then. Congrats on the great run tonight.
Thanks, guys. Appreciate you.
And before we go down to victory lane, and I know you guys can't see him, but I want to give a shout out to Josh Metallic, who is the one moving in the drivers here for the post race interviews. Appreciate that. As said, things have been a little topsy-turvy here tonight, but let's see if we can now dial up
User was moved
our
out
race
of your
winner,
channel.
Jeremy Jeffries, in the 8 truck.
User was moved to
Jeremy,
your
Michael, and
channel.
Seth up here in the FRM booth. You got us?
Hey, I do. Yes, sir.
Well, I'll tell you what, I mean, we up here in the commentators booth, we're trying to figure out all of who was where with all those late race pit stops. Our telemetry was going crazy trying to figure out who was running in what position. Everything was nuts up here in the booth. I mean, I can only imagine what it was like for you drivers in terms of trying to strategize just how much fuel to put in the car, when to come to pit road, since it looked like everybody could not make it the rest of that distance. What was it like from the cockpit of that Oreo Chevrolet, and just what was the elation feeling when you found out, looking down at your F2, that you were the one that picked up that checkered flag, that guaranteed ticket in the Final Four?
Oh man, our strategy. I don't know if I had a strategy there. It was pretty much just go where they weren't. I didn't know that 23 was running out of gas, so that caught me off guard. Rodney went high, which was unexpected because I figured he'd go low. So I was just like, well, I'll try it down here and see what happens.
And yeah, I mean, this race is absolutely crazy. And did you honestly think that you had enough of the momentum when you made that move to the inside that it was going to be enough? Because I mean, it was very crazy. That whole run through the trioval there was pretty fun to watch.
Yeah, I have no idea. I know there were trucks coming behind me. I know, like I said, Rodney went high. I didn't know if anybody went low with me. I still don't know if anybody went low with me. But I just, I had it wide open and was hoping I had enough there. And I think I looked at the results and it showed a tie with Rodney there. And I was like, oh man, that was insane.
Yeah, the official scoring on our monitor, 17 1,000ths of a second, one of the closer finishes this season. So, with the way that the playoffs work here, we have one race and then one elimination race. So, it's a very interesting scenario here for you. Locked into the Final Four, you don't yet know who the 3 competitors will be that you'll go up against in 2 weeks' time in the season finale. But, I mean, what is the goal for next week? Do you maybe try and get another victory here and add to your win total here in the Tally Challenge? Do you maybe help one of those drivers that's trying to get into the Final Four? I mean, what do you do? Because I'm very curious to know what you would prefer to do in terms of maybe trying to either help a driver get into the Final Four or deny a driver an opportunity to get into the Final Four.
Well, I think the ultimate goal is to win every race I can. I mean, that's extra incentive to go out there and, just take both those wins and make everybody fight for the points. I can't just try to get one person to win. If it works out that I'm in a position to help somebody, obviously I will, but I don't want to be the person who decides who makes the chase. I just want to make sure that I made it.
Is there any experimentation that maybe goes on next week in preparation for that season finale?
Gosh, I don't know. We've been doing this for so long. I don't know anything I could do differently besides just go out there and try to replicate what happened today.
Well, Jeremy, a tremendous job by you here tonight, picking up that victory, locking yourself into the Final Four for the championship. I know you've been wanting to win this championship in this series for a long time, and maybe season 57 is the season to do it. Before we let you go and continue your celebration here tonight, we're going to turn the mic over to you for some victory lane thank you, sponsors, and shoutouts.
First off, I have to apologize to whoever was involved in that pit road thing there with two laps to go. We just came in there 4 wide. I was not left any room on the outside, and I clipped the grass there, and I think got somebody sideways there, and don't really know how that's going to play out. But so anybody and everybody that was involved in that, it was either still try to make it onto pit road and or stay on the track and run out of gas, because I had my gas light was already on there. So we'll see how that plays out. But like I said, I want to apologize. Shout out to you guys. I mean, I'm glad y'all got to broadcast the best part of the race there. I know we had some issues early, but thanks for doing this every week. And oh man, I can't wait to watch it back there at the end, because I've already heard that you all were having a blast with it. And thanks to Bones and to Sean Prime, the owners of RTG, all the admins, and my teammates at XFM.
Well, that's Jeremy Jeffries. He picks up the victory here tonight in race 13 of the season. He is your first official locked-in driver into the championship battle, the final four in 2 weeks' time in the season finale, and just proven that in typical Talladega fashion, you never know what's going to happen until that checkered flag waves. Congratulations on the victory, Jeremy. Best of luck next week in preparation for that championship race.
Thank you very much.
And so as Jeremy continues his celebration here tonight, Michael, obviously, as mentioned, 3 more spots to fill in next week's penultimate race of the season. Tonight was absolutely crazy. I can only imagine what we're going to see next week, with maybe a handful of drivers coming into that race in a must-win situation.
I've already got my popcorn ready for next week. It's going to be exciting.
Sure to pass
I
that
know.
over.
I'm gonna eat a week old popcorn while watching the most exciting race next to the championship race.
It's gonna be hard pressed to top tonight. I mean, tonight was very hard to keep track of, but certainly was a lot of fun to watch and try and figure out who was going to emerge victorious. Again, apologies for the issues that we had, the technical issues at the start. Hopefully we'll get all that figured out for next week's race. We hope that you all join us next Thursday night when we determine the final 3 drivers that will join Jeremy Jeffries for the championship. Next Thursday night, green flag at 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. But for Michael Norman, I'm Seth Cole. Enjoy the rest of your Thursday night, folks, as you've been watching another broadcast courtesy of FRN, the Flatout Racing Network.